Hey guys, welcome to the show. Sorry for the long absence. I've been busy. Uh, yeah, life. So anyway, I have something a little different for you today. Something that I don't usually do, but I just watched the episode last night and I couldn't contain myself. Of course, talking about Game of Thrones. It's the penultimate, the second to last episode, and it was pretty jarring. Basically, we saw our beautiful princess breaker of change, like quarters and stuff. No, breaker of chains. Sorry, but we saw her turn from our hero to ultimately the villain. What she did is she attacked King's Landing and she took it out. She ingeniously took out the Iron Fleet and got past the Scorpions. It was like beautiful what she planned. It was absolutely well executed. It was well done. It was perfect. But then they surrendered. And when King's Landing surrendered, she kept going. She torched the city, she torched the battlements, she pulled the towers down, she she incinerated fleeing civilians, she destroyed the Golden Company, she just... See, the second those bells rang and she kept going, it stopped being a military action and started being a slaughter. She slaughtered King's Landing, she murdered those people. You just don't attack a fleeing enemy and still be the good guy. It's just impossible. Now, personality traits that have started basically from scene one. She's been burning people alive, but we sort of felt okay with it because the people she was burning alive were the people we didn't like. Well, now she's burning, like, good people alive. Well, not necessarily good, but just people, because that's what people are. They're not good or bad. They're just people. So I have a theory on what actually led to this transformation, why she's been getting darker and more paranoid and more aggressive as time has gone by. Now, there's a medical condition that's brought on by lack of oxygen. It's called hypoxia. Basically, when your lungs can't absorb enough oxygen, it can't get to your brain and your brain cells start to die. Now, your brain is sort of like a mishmash of neurons and wires, and not actual wires, but for argument's sake, wires that are all interconnected. Now, when a brain cell dies, it just goes out like a light, but everything is wired in such a way that if it's not too bad, your brain can sort of work around it, make new connections, yada yada. Now, unfortunately, if you have hypoxia over a long period of time, if you keep being subjected to it, different lights burn out, and it starts to affect you. You actually get brain damage. Now, with hypoxia, with brain damage, you're going to notice a few things that are, well, pretty common among all of them. Now, when I tell you these things, you're going to be pretty amazed. Not amazed, but like things are going to click in. Paranoia, changes in personality, violence, lack of impulse control, light sensitivity. I'm going to string this all together in a minute. You're going to be like, ooh. Okay, now, there's, of course, fine motor control and stuff like that, but that's not always the case, and usually it starts with the mental processing stuff first, personality changes and paranoia, stuff like that, right? Now, you say, okay, well, that's fine and kind. How does she get hypoxia? How does the breaker of chains not getting enough oxygen? Now, some of humanity's first experiences with hypoxia, and I'm not talking about drowning, I'm not talking about, there's two professions, I should say, that hypoxia is a real concern. The first is mountain climbers. Mountain climbers, they have to take supplemental oxygen because when you go higher up in altitude, the air is thin. You're not getting enough air in your lungs. You do have effects. This accumulates over time and it really messes you up. And now the second place is pilots, especially, fighter pilots and whatnot. You've seen Top Gun where they have the air mask on and the breathing tube and whatnot. That's because at certain altitudes, you can't get enough air just from the ambient air. You can't get enough oxygen from the ambient air. You have to have supplemental oxygen or you're not going to get enough. Okay? So I think if some of you are starting to clue in, the dragons. She rides those dragons really high and really fast. In this episode, she pulled off a beautiful tactic of flying high above the cloud cover and then swooping down from the sun. Now, this is an amazing way to get around the iron, because the scorpions, which are basically ballistas, which are basically giant crossbows, they are amazing if you know where your target is. If you can aim before you get there. Now, they took a dragon out with one before, but that's because they have the jump on her. They weren't expecting the Iron Fleet to be there. The Iron Fleet just sort of snuck around, knew where they were, and pounced. But when Dany came out of the sun like this, they were all pointed this way. She came out of this way. There's no way, like, these ballistas, they call them scorpions in the show, are hundreds and hundreds of pounds of wood and metal, and they're not easily re-aimed. You can't just take it and swing it around. It's fixed to the ship. It has to be unlocked. It has to be turned. It would probably take a few minutes to re-aim one, and that's not realistic when when she was basically doing an ambush like that. Now, that was genius. That was beautiful. She took out the Iron Fleet and absolutely no effort at all. It was beautiful. Then coming in low over the sea, she came up and started roasting the battlements. See, the ballistas are wonderful weapons, but they're not really versatile. You have to basically know where your enemy is. They were expecting her to come from the sky. So when she came out of the sun like that, the Iron Fleet was toast. And then she scooched in along the water. Then she flew in along the water and came up at them. They were all pointed this way. They can't just unlock them, and they were screwed. Once she got behind the ballistas in the city walls itself, the ballistas were all pointed outwards and up. She was behind the walls, just taking out everything. So it was genius. Okay, so the pivotal scene, what changed everything, what changed her from the queen we all know and love to the Mad Queen, was when the bells rang. We could see it in her face. She was committed to her course of action. She was not changing what she was doing. She decided right then and there to stay the course and obliterate King's Landing. She pulled down the towers. She roasted the Golden Company. She killed the men. She killed the women. She killed the children. The fleeing civilians. She went from the invasion of King's Landing to the slaughter of King's Landing in a moment. It was heart-wrenching. She literally, like, by doing this, she's worse than her father ever was. She's worse than Cersei was. That was a wholesale destruction of a city and the slaughter of probably hundreds of thousands of people. Like, roll that in your head. She's not really the good guy anymore. A lot of people take issue with that. Some people are like, well, I've seen hints, and yeah, she was hard, but she wasn't slaughter the weak and innocent hard. Now, when this scene came and the bells were ringing and her face was just shaking, I thought to myself, that's not normal. That's not a normal person's reaction. Even enraged, even with psychological issues, there's something going on there. And I was reminded, pilots, when they don't have adequate oxygen, will sometimes commit themselves to an action. Whether it's bombing a situation or, like, sometimes it's even flying in a direction. Like, I've heard stories of pilots almost flying into mountains because their oxygen dipped and they just couldn't make the logical jump to, hey, I gotta stop doing what I'm doing. Well, she had committed herself to this action and she continued doing it, and she wiped that city out. Now, you think to yourself, okay, well, she was at ground level at that point. This should not necessarily have caused problems. Hypoxia clears up relatively quick when you get back down to sea level, when you get the proper amount of oxygen back in your blood. Unfortunately, it's cumulative. When you are hypoxic, you lose brain cells. Brain cells die, and your brain has to rewire itself. Now, this is where the personality changes, and you get paranoia. You basically become the worst version of yourself. And I think that's what happened to Daenerys. I think that all these years of flying her dragons, flying them high and fast, up above the clouds, I think that she's been slowly killing her brain by just not getting enough oxygen. And this has led to her having paranoia. This has led to her light sensitivity. This is something I've been noticing, that her scenes in the first few seasons, she was in the sun, she was outside, she was in the world. But lately, have you noticed that a lot of her scenes are in darkened rooms or next to fires or just darker and moodier? She's like her Dragonstone throne room. It's dark. Her quarters are dark. Now you can say, oh, it's like the Middle Ages type of situation. There's not much light, but how often do you see her outside when she doesn't have to be? How often do you see her like just out on the battlements, out on the pediment, the castle shit? You don't. That would be sensitivity to light, I think. This is just a theory, but it does sort of hold water with what's going on, with the way she's changing, the way things have been going. She's got violent tendencies. She has difficulty with impulse control. Like, the battle with the Night's King was atrocious. She screwed it up royally. Like, her and Jon kind of really, it was all the heroic battle and stuff, but they really didn't do much. And I think that's because her brain is damaged. I think that flying the dragons really high like that and not getting enough oxygen to her brain as like a constant thing. Now, also, if you go back through her family history, the Targaryans are known for two things: incest and madness. And what else do? They ride dragons. Now, you could argue, well, her father didn't ride a dragon, but her father would have been also like the child of multiple generations of incest and madness. Of course, you're going to get actual crazy ones. But what if the root of the insanity in the Targaryen dynasty isn't a curse, but the dragons themselves? What if the flying high is actually causing them to go nuts? I don't know. This is just a theory that I had. This is just multiple things that I sort of wove together as I watched the show. I don't usually do, show theories or movie theories. I'm not MatPat or anything, but I figured I just had to talk to you guys about this. Now, if you guys have any like thoughts or feelings or questions or comments, just put them in the box below. Thanks for watching. Oh, there's a bell now. There's a bell and like a thumbs up, and you want to share this stuff, I'm all for that. There should be some more stuff coming up. I got those peanut butter cups made. I plan on doing some stuff with cakes. I don't know. We'll see. I tried fudge the other day, but the sugar-free fudge did not turn out. So I actually am not going to post that video. I'm going to rejigger the recipe. I wouldn't want you guys doing something. It was oily and gross. No. Anyway, so thanks for watching. Thumbs up, subscribe, bell, all the other call to action stuff all the YouTubers do. I don't know. Okay, thanks for watching.